Hi folks, this is Vince with Ads Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly check out Deep Sea Adventure. This is a game for 2 to 6 players for ages 8 and up, with the average playtime being about 30 minutes. This is a semi-cooperative push-your-luck game, though there will only be one winner at the end of the game. And basically, in this game, players are divers here, okay? And they start at this submarine, and they share an oxygen counter here, which I'll get to in a minute. But basically, these divers are going to be going down this path, and they'll be picking up these tokens or these treasures along the way. On the reverse side of these tokens are points. The further down you go, the more points you get. So you start off with these 1 tokens here. They have the least amount of points, then you move on to the 2 tokens, then there's these 3s, and then there's the 4s. So the deeper you go down, the more points you get. But, like I said, you share an oxygen supply here, and there's a little token for that, and you'll be sliding this throughout the round. The game is played over 3 rounds. And whenever the shared oxygen supply is depleted, that player will finish their turn, and anyone left in the ocean will die, and they'll drop all of their treasures to the bottom of the ocean in a stack. And then anyone that survived, by making it back to the boat before that before that happens, will get to keep their treasures and then move on to the next round. So at the beginning of the game, what you're going to do is you're going to basically give 1 diver token for each player in the game. You're going to go ahead and put the oxygen tracker at 25 here. And you're going to go ahead and set up the board something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but you know, it's fine. Just set up a path, the 1s, then the 2s, then the 3s, and the 4s. You've got these dice here, and at the very beginning of your turn, what you're going to do is first you're going to move the oxygen meter. And to do that, you're going to take a look at the number of treasures you've collected thus far, and then move the oxygen tracker that many spaces. At the very beginning of the game, you're not going to have any, or at the beginning of the round, you're not going to have any, so you don't have to worry about that. So let's just say I'm green and I roll the dice, and before you roll, you want to say, okay, I'm going down. Okay, you have to declare whether or not you're going down or up. Once you go up, you have to continue that upward trend until you reach the boat or until you die, depending on whether or not you run out of oxygen. So I rolled a 3, so let's say I'm green, and I go 1, 2, 3. Now I have a choice. I can either pick that up now, or I can just say I'm not picking that up. If I decide to pick it up, what I'll do is I'll take the token, put it in front of me like this. Now I may lose this if I don't make it back to the boat before the oxygen runs out. Now I'm going to put one of these temporary tokens off to the side here in its place, and that acts as a space. Now at the end of the round, those are removed and this path will become shorter. So round 2, this path will be slightly shorter, and then round 3, the path will be even shorter still, because you're going to be removing these tokens here, and players are hopefully going to be amassing a pile in their permanent score pile. And now it's someone else's turn. Let's say it's Blue's turn now, so they're going to go ahead and roll the dice, and of course you're going to go down, and you rolled a 2 there. And now these dice, by the way, only go up to 3, so the maximum amount you can roll is a 6. So there's 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 3s. So blue is going to move 2 spaces. And by the way, whenever you do roll the dice and you land on somebody or get to somebody, you automatically jump over them. They do not count as a space. Let's say that this player had rolled a 4 instead. That way I can show you. It's 1, 2, and then you jump over 3, 4. Again, this player can decide, do I want to take that or not? This player is going to decide not to take it, and that's a perfectly fine thing to do. All right, now it's red's turn, let's say. So red's going to roll the dice, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Red's going to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take that. So he's going to go ahead and put that in front of him, put a permanent one in its place. There we go. And this is going to continue. Purple's going to go ahead and roll the dice. Let's say he ends up somewhere here, for example, decides not to take any. Now we're back to green's turn, and green has 1 in front of him. So the oxygen meter now goes down by 1. So as players collect more and more treasures, this oxygen is going to deplete more rapidly. And on top of that, whenever you roll the dice and you have treasure in front of you, you have to subtract the number of treasures you have from the total rolled. So if I rolled, say, a 3, for example, for green, I would only get to move 2. All right, so let's say I announced, okay, I'm going to move downward. I went ahead and rolled a 3. I'm only going to move 2 because I've already got 1 in front of me, so I end up going like 1, and then I'm down here 2. And I can say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take that, I guess. And then on a future turn, let's say that everyone else has taken their turn. Let's say they moved up, whatever. I think another person took 1. I think it was red. So this meter would have gone down 1 because of this one over here. And then it was green's turn again. Now green has 2 treasures in front of them, so this oxygen thing has to go down by 2. Okay, and eventually at some point, players are going to be picking up more and more treasures, and this oxygen is going to start depleting itself. And players are going to go, you know what, I better get back up to the sub before we die here. So let's go ahead and go back up. So let's just say that throughout the game, let's say that was taken by somebody, and this was taken by someone. I think my dog is in the other room dreaming. Yeah, she's. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to cut the video here, but poor thing. Yeah, she's dreaming about something. Okay, I woke you up. I'm sorry, Lucy. You were making some noise in here. I was just checking on you. Okay. All right, she was sleeping. Anyway, getting back to this. All right. So, like I said, eventually all of these, some of these tokens will be taken, and again, every turn, this oxygen meter is going to go down and down and down and down and down. And people are going to be trying to make their way back up to the top of the sub here before that happens. Let's say that red manages to make it back and blue manages to make it back. Let's say green does, but let's say that purple had like, I don't know, 4 treasures in front of them, and they rolled a 5, okay, and he'd only be able to move 1 space because of that. Because again, you take the total, subtract the number of treasures you have, and that's that's 1. And at this point, he's got 4 treasures, and on his next turn, he's going to lose 4 oxygen. Takes his turn. Let's say he rolls again. He gets a 4. 4 minus 4. He can't move. So now he's stuck there, and he's out of oxygen. So now purple dies. Now he gets to move on to the next round. That's fine. But any treasures that he had in the meantime, let's say he had that one, that one, that one, and again, this is just for an example. This isn't actual gameplay here, but let's say he had these 4 things. These 4 things become a stack and get dropped down here, like so. So if anyone were to eventually make their way down to the bottom here, they could collect this 1 stack. This counts as 1 oxygen and 1 against the die. So you don't take each individual one. You take the entire stack in front of you. That counts as 1. So let's say that on a future round, I collected this, and I had, say, this one as well. That would count as 2 oxygen per turn, or when it gets to my turn, and then also 2 against me on the dice. So that's pretty cool. And again, that's played over 3 rounds, and then at the end of every round, you're going to go ahead and remove these temporary ones, and this path will become shorter. That way, in future rounds, these more expensive ones are a little bit more accessible. Now, whenever you're playing with 2 players, I recommend that you remove 1 token or 1 treasure token from each of the 4 sections, just to make the path shorter by default. That way you have, because whenever you're playing with more players, the oxygen can deplete very, very quickly, especially if every player starts taking a bunch of treasures like within 2 turns of each other. And you'll notice that this oxygen will go from, say, it'll start slow. It'll go, oh, we just 1, then 2, then maybe 1, then this. And then eventually, let's say the next player has 3. Okay, then that goes down 3. Then the other player has 3. So this goes down by 3. And by the time your turn rolls around again, it may end up being somewhere around here. And then let's say you take your turn, and this oxygen meter may even drop to, say, 2 by the time it gets to your turn again. So the more people that you add to the mix, the faster this oxygen has a tendency to drop. So there's different strategies that you can employ whenever you're playing with like 4 players as opposed to 2. But again, in a 2-player game, I recommend taking 1 piece away from each of these 4 seconds just to make the chain a little bit shorter, just to make these a bit more accessible. Another thing I didn't go over was what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the submarine. Whenever a player makes it back to the surface, again, they get to keep whatever treasure they've amassed, but the oxygen is no longer counted against the submarine. So whatever they have becomes permanent, and their turn is basically skipped, and the oxygen meter does not go down. So that's a good thing. So if you have a bunch of people still in the sub, or if you have a bunch of people that made it back to the sub and you're the only one left, the oxygen meter is only going to go down based on what you have in front of you. Oh, and by the way, also, let's say that at some point you're trying to make it back to the surface, but you have too much on you that you can't make it back, because let's say you had like 5 treasures in front of you and you're rolling 4s and you can't move. You can, if you land on one of these spaces here, these temporary spaces, you can drop treasure that you have. That way you'll end up with less points at the end of the round, but you'll be able to move a little bit easier and try and get back to the sub before you die. So that's basically Deep Sea Adventure. Again, this is played over 3 rounds, and players do not look at their tokens, by the the way, until the end of every round. At the end of 3 rounds, players will take a look at what they've amassed throughout the entire game, and whoever has the most points wins. Now, that was just a rough and dirty explanation as to how this game is played. Again, push your luck mechanics. Try and get as far down as you can, collect what you can, and get back up before the oxygen runs out. That's basically what this is all about. And of course, you want to make, a note of what the other players are doing. Are they going down? Are they going back up? Can you sabotage them by going up and taking a bunch along the way? That way it depletes the oxygen where you can get to the sub, but they'll have a harder time getting back up in time. So there's different strategies that you can employ. It's a pretty fun game. We played a 4-player game just actually half an hour ago, and all of us enjoyed it. I was the only one that ended up with points because everyone else just kept dying. They died all 3 rounds. They underestimated their chances of, or overestimated their chances in getting back to the submarine in time. I went up early and took as I went up, so that I would guarantee that I would get to the sub, even if I rolled low. But that would deplete the oxygen supply. I'd have like 4 tokens in front of me, and then when my turn roll around and I was up here somewhere, this entire token would go down by, say, 4. And by the time they were ready to come back up, this submarine was like almost out of air. So yeah, different strategies, pretty fun push your luck game. Definitely recommend this one. Again, it's 2 to 6 players, so if you have, again, just 2 players or 6, that's great. I mean, a lot of families, sometimes, they have 5 people. Some families have 4 people. Some families only have 2, like couples, for example. So go check this one out. It's a lot of fun. If you guys haven't already, go check out my quick written review. I'm going to do something a little different this time. Normally, I write up an entire review to accompany a video. This time, because of time constraints and the fact that, due to medical health reasons I'm not going to get into on this video, I'm going to just write a quick blurb about the game and then put the video right under it and be done with it. I bought the game, so I have I don't feel guilty doing that. I think I've made my point across pretty well. If I had to review this game and give it a score, I'd have to give it like an 8 out of 10. I mean, the components are really nice. My only real complaint here was with the price. Just because I think it was $20 to $25 on Amazon, and most games that are small of this nature usually fall around the $15 price range. Another problem that I have is the box, when there's nothing in it, or just even if there is something in it, there's no like handle. Like trying to get it back out again is just impossible. Like you have to dig in there to get this bottom piece out. So I'm trying really hard. I'm squeezing the box. There we go, finally trying to get it. And this is difficult enough with one hand. But yeah, it's just the box and the lid are so tight that it can be difficult to get this piece off if you were to close it up. But really, that's my only 2 complaints, the price and the design of the box. Everything else about the game is really cool. So there you have it. If you guys, again, haven't checked out my official website, do so, www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.